Alex Abella is our guest in this short segment. He's going to get into some more of his discoveries in more modern times of RAND Corporation getting us into Iraq and other wars. Then starting in the next segment, for several more segments, we'll talk to Matt, William, John, Ryan, Steve, and others. But no group in the globalist social engineering hierarchy, the master architects of the New World Order, do you find an organization more powerful, more influential than RAND? RAND was basically given the quarterbacking job by the Ford Foundation and Carnegie Endowment to set up this corporate world government that collectivizes us through a fake free market controlled within a false paradigm of consumerism. But it's a spectrum they control, where they destroy our values, our true rights, our true wealth, and give us baubles instead. Alex Abella, you wanted to get into Iraq and some of the more modern chapters with the RAND Corporation.
Right, because, I mean, that is such a prime example of what they are doing. I mean, you know, for crying out loud, you know, we're still in Iraq, right? We still have, I think, 50,000 over there. And, you know, we're still in Afghanistan. A lot of people are asking themselves, well, what the hell are we doing there? And then, of course, it all goes back to 9/11, then goes back as well to Desert Storm. And, you know, it's RAND. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but it's the truth. It's people who came out of RAND. I specifically want to point out one gentleman who perhaps your listeners will be aware of. His name is Andrew Marshall, who is the head of the Office of Net Assessment. He's been in the Pentagon since 1973, and every president, including President Obama right now, has reconfirmed him in his post. And what is his post? To dream up new weapons. He's the kind of guy who came up with the whole concept of, you know, the Star Wars approach to missiles. You know, we went into Iraq, and we bombed the capital in Baghdad, and the whole concept, you know, of exoskeletons for people, for soldiers, of
drugging troops. He's the one that ordered West Point to make everybody read Starship Troopers, the book.
Absolutely. Yes, he's the one who's, like, leading us. He's, like, the leading light. The man is in his late 80s. He's almost 90 right now, and he's still there. He's like, he looks like something out of science fiction, only it's science fact. And he's still there, and he was one of the founders of RAND, who came up with, you know, with the whole concept of the military-industrial complex, who developed it right from the 1940s and the 1950s. He was there. He was one of the advisors to the Gator Report, for crying out loud.
And he wants to inject all the troops with mind control drugs. That's even in Wired magazine. He says it won't be what weapons they have, but what drugs they're on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the whole rationale for going into Iraq, for going into Desert Storm back in the 80s, which you have to remember, this all dates back to the 1980s, is, again, you know, you can trace it directly to RAND studies that came out in the early 70s, saying after the problem with the 1973 with the embargo, the oil embargo, says the United States has to take control of the Middle East. I mean, in so many words, if they want to, whether it's directly or indirectly with the United States forces there, or indirectly through friendly regimes that will do as the United States bids. And it's been a constant in their thinking. And they're still at it.
But when they say USA, they mean the corporate elite that uses us as their muscle.
Exactly. I mean, because the USA to them is the small group of technocrats who, of course, you know, disguises itself as a democratically elected government, but says we are the ones who actually know what the questions are and what the answers should be.
Well, that's what Carroll Quigley said. He said, we control both parties. We give the illusion of change. And by controlling the leadership, we can continually move our agenda towards world government down the road.
And isn't it true? Isn't that what we're seeing all around us?
And then meanwhile, the media will admit world government's here, but say it's the solution to all our problems, but then demonize those of us that say there's a world government. They say we're crazy, it doesn't exist. I mean, if that isn't mind control, I don't know what is. Alex Abella is our guest, alexabella.com. We have links to him up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. He's an amazing researcher with key intel on the globalist internal operations. Alex Abella.